Welcome to my channel. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. Before we get started with today's video, I just want to share some information with you. All the products used in this video are now linked in the description box for those of you who know how to find the description box, but I'm also pinning it in the comment section. And please don't forget to like, comment, or consider subscribing. Your interaction with my channel is so helpful. It lets YouTube know that you're enjoying my content and it makes my videos available to more viewers. It's a really nice way to show your support and I really do appreciate it. All right, now let's get started. Hello my friends, and welcome to another sketchbook idea video. In this video I'm going to show you 5 different ideas to fill the pages of your sketchbook. And I am working on Canson XL. I love this spiral bound sketchbook because I can easily fold the pages underneath and they are not in the way. I am using my Meliang watercolor paints, and I'll also be using throughout this video micron pens, acrylic paint pens, Posca pens, whatever I can get my hands on. So for this particular one, we are going to fill in our page with little shapes, and then we're going to add extra color and we're going to make some fun little fish. Now try very hard not to get caught in the details because you'll lose the fun of this little painting. So just drop in your shapes, add a little bit of color, add some fins and a tail, and then we'll have some fun adding the final details later on. So I have almost finished filling in the page. I'm now adding some little circles to make them look like bubbles. And once this is completely dry, we'll come back in and add our detail. Alright, so now that the painting is dry, here comes the fun part. I took a white gel pen and an acrylic marker and I added eyes. I also highlighted the bubbles with a couple of little lines, and I've added some details to the little fish. Here I'm adding a mouth to the fish with a micron pen, and then I decided to add a little seaweed, and I love the way this turned out. It was really cute and a lot of fun. Here's the finished painting. On to the next one. So here we are at number 2. I did tape off the edges because I do want a border for this one. So I've taken a micron pen with a thicker nib and I simply scribbled wavy lines on the paper. And now I've switched to a micron pen with a finer tip, and I'm just adding lines, and all my lines start from one corner of those little spaces that I created with the swirly marks. So I'm just going to go through this and I am going to fill in each single one of these spaces. And this one is time consuming, but there is something so relaxing about filling in those spaces with nothing but lines. And we won't be using any paint. This is just going to be a black and white painting. And this is, like I said, it's time consuming, but you fall into a trance when you're doing it. So turn on some music, make yourself a cup of coffee or tea, and just enjoy the process. It turns out really, really nice. You'll see that soon. So I have to admit that I did have to walk away from this one a couple of times simply because it did take a bit of time. But in the end, it was so absolutely worth it. And you can see that I turn my paper so that I can keep the lines going in the direction that I want them to go. So be sure to take your time, walk away if you have to. In the end, it will be worth it because this turns out so pretty. So here we are, filling in the last space, and on this one I decided to curve my lines. I wish I had thought to do that with other areas because I really like the way it looked. So let's remove the tape and see what this looks like. Gorgeous. Here's a picture of the finished painting. I guess we have to call this one a drawing because we didn't use any paint. Alright, so on to number 3. For this next one, we're going to have a little fun. I'm going to use my watercolors and I am painting what will soon be a face. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to grab a few of my acrylic paint markers, and I am going to give this little girl some curly, crazy hair. So once I've added in my hair and I'm happy with the way it looks, and the fun part about this is that we're not trying to make this look realistic, we're trying to have some fun. So add some lips using whatever color you like. And of course, if you don't have these acrylic paint pens, you can use watercolor, you can use Posca pens, acrylic paint, whatever you like. So I've given her some pink cheeks and a little nose, and I'm giving her some pretty brown eyebrows. And can you hear the landscapers in the background? Makes me crazy. It never fails. It's either Diesel barking or the landscapers. Anyway, I've given her some glasses and I've got to give her some freckles. She looks like she needs them. So once I was finished with that, I decided to give her a neck and some shoulders so she just wouldn't be a floating head. Very simple. You can see there's nothing perfect about this. It's just a fun painting, and you can create yours with short hair, long hair, whatever you like. Straight hair, no hair. So I decided to give her a bow for her hair. So I'm using my watercolor to add the bow. And once it's dry, I'll come back in with the acrylic paint pens and I'll add some detail. So I waited for everything to dry completely, and now I wanted to give her some clothes. So she's wearing a little tank top, and I'm going to color it in with this pretty shade of green. And then of course she has to have a necklace. So I'm using a light gray for this. And of course she has to have some pattern on her top, because why not? So I'm just drawing in some very simple little flowers, and now I've taken the red acrylic pen and I'm adding some detail to the bow so it stands out just a little bit more. And you could put a hat on yours, you could put rollers in yours, whatever you like. So once I was finished and I was happy with the way it looked, I took a white gel pen and I added a few little highlights here and there. This is a lot of fun and very simple. I hope you give this one a try. So once I was finished adding my highlights, I called it finished, and this is the finished painting. All right, so on to number 4. For this one, we're going to use watercolor, and we're just going to paint circles. And while the paint is still wet, we're going to paint another circle next to the first one so that the colors bleed from one to the other. So just fill in the paper with these circles, let them bleed one into the other. And then once we've filled the paper with these circles, we're going to let it dry completely. And then we're going to come back and add some detail. And of course, you can add whatever shapes you like. While the paint was still wet, I did sprinkle a little bit of salt on it, and then I let it dry completely on its own. I removed the salt, and then I took a fine liner and did circles. I drew circles around the circles, and I wasn't concerned with staying within the lines or anything. As you can see, I just circled them. Then I took another fine liner and I drew lines in between the circles. Once I filled in all the lines, I took another fine liner with a broader nib and I drew little dots on the lines just here and there. And of course I can't leave well enough alone, so I got my, what are these? These are my chrome acrylic paint pens. I got them in gold and silver, and I started to fill in some of the circles. And just created a very simple pattern within some of them. I don't think I filled them all in. I also used the acrylic paint markers. I used a white gel pen. And once I was happy with the way that it looked, I removed the tape. This one is really easy, but it's also a lot of fun. Removing the tape is always the best part. I think the painting looks twice as good when you remove the tape. Here's the finished painting. And now on to number 5. All right, so this last one may be my favorite one. Let me know which one you like best. So I started out by taping the edges of my paper. I traced a cup onto the corner of the paper, and I'm using watercolors and a very large brush. And you can see that I am painting in these very, very large petals. And I'm starting out with yellow, and then I'm going back into each of the petals, and I'm adding different shades of orange to add a little bit of detail to each of the petals. Once I've finished adding my first layer of petals, I'm going to wait for it to dry completely. Now here it's dry, so I'm going to add a second layer, and I'm using a deeper shade of yellow, and again going back in and adding some orange for some lines and details in each of those petals. All right, so now we're going to wait for this second layer to dry. Once it's dry, I'm using the tip of my brush to pick up some deep dark brown, and I am dabbing it within that circle to create the center of my flower. Then I'm going to pick up a different shade of brown, and I'm going to add that as well. And then I'm going to go a little bit lighter in the center. Now I'm going to wait for it to dry a little, and then I will add more of the browns, the different shades of brown as I did. You can see here I'm adding like a reddish brown. And we're creating the center of our sunflower. This is really easy, but the effect is so nice. And now I'm adding some smaller leaves close to the center for a little added detail, because you know I can't leave well enough alone. And I'm just adding them here and there, and I'm dragging a little bit of that brown from the center into those petals for the little detail. This is a very fast painting. It doesn't have to be perfect. When you remove that tape, you'll be surprised at just how pretty this looks. So just adding a few final touches, and then we're going to pull off that tape, and I was really happy. It almost looks like a transparent sunflower. So I made sure I dried it completely before I pulled off the tape. I hope that you have enjoyed these videos where I give you ideas on how to fill your sketchbook. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. So here is the finished painting. Well, I hope you're feeling inspired. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.